Everybody, what's going on? Fabian for Liberty, fabianforliberty.com. So here's the video on Ukraine and Russia and the West video that I promised yesterday. I want to just break down that analysis real quick. If you've missed or haven't seen yet the webinar that I spoke about in yesterday's video about opting out of the job paradigm, the link is down below for you to check it out. Also have been, we didn't include it in the webinar, but if you've opted in at fabianforliberty.com or fabiancalvo.me, you'll be getting a chain of emails talking about the guarantee that we're giving out, which is in essence guaranteeing that we help you set up your own online business if you're not able to do it after going through the program. So really nothing else out there like it. And we have a ton of people that we've already helped do this that are already selling products on Amazon. So it's pretty cool to hear from them all the time. So anyways, that link is down below. All right, so yesterday I talked about this brokered peace deal that was put together by Angela Merkel from Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, where basically bottom line is that Eastern Ukraine has agreed to remain part of Ukraine, yet they're going to get a lot more autonomy, they're going to get a lot more voting rights, and basically be able to kind of be almost like an independent country within the country of Ukraine. Also, Vladimir Putin basically got what he wanted, which is that close economic relationship between Eastern Ukraine and Russia. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, first, I had a brilliant comment from someone yesterday that said, you know, the peace deal, there's been a few others. This one's been the most kind of like solid one so far. But who's not in favor of a peace deal taking place between Ukraine ultimately and the Russians? Well, I'll tell you who. It's the military-industrial complex that's not interested in that, and more importantly, or more sinisterly, it is the IMF and the Wall Street bankers. Remember, the IMF has promised to give Ukraine billions of dollars in aid if they're able to expel the rebels from that eastern part of Ukraine, basically going to war, which is what we've seen unfold. And you know, today I was reading a report where Russia is the number one, the Russian central bank is the number one central bank that's bought the most gold over the last year. Ukraine, their gold has mysteriously vanished, right? They say that they've sold it, but a lot of it is gone. Likely went to the IMF as collateral for the money that they've promised. Likely went to the Western forces who have almost extorted them to get them and use them almost like a, I don't even know how to even summarize how they're really being used, but they're being used basically as a tool for a greater war against the Russians, which is what the neocons absolutely want. Now, why the deal with Russia? Why all of a sudden? Well, because, you know, Vladimir Putin, who again, I don't know him, of course, and I'm not saying he's great either, okay? All I know is that if Mexico, the Chinese staged a coup in Mexico and installed a really unfriendly U.S. government, you bet your bottom dollar the United States would be all over trying to get that, that coup, the new government that was installed by the Chinese government, getting them out of there. And that's exactly what we have seen where the Russians aren't even trying to get Poroshenko out of there. They're just saying, okay, well, you know, let us have more control over this eastern part of the country. Now, what's so important about the East, and why is the IMF concerned about the East? Why did the IMF want them to get rid of those rebel forces? It's because the East is where there is an abundance of natural gas, an abundance of coal, there's nuclear reactors. It's a big deal. It's an energy war. It is a resource war, not to mention the abundance of farmland that is throughout eastern Ukraine and throughout Ukraine as a whole. It is one of truly the breadbaskets of the world. So there's a lot of things behind this. Of course, warfare is always driven by economics, and in this case, it's driven by resources. And the IMF doesn't like that. Remember, the countries mostly involved with the IMF are at least the Western contributors that contribute the most, the U.S. and countries in the EU, are technically bankrupt, okay? So what they need to do to shore up things is that they might try to extort and to gather up and to control as many assets as they possibly can. In this case, you know, the coal-rich lands in Ukraine, the farmland, what have you, be able to control that. And they do this by giving loans. The IMF does this by giving loans. So we'll give you $10 billion, and in turn, we'll take your natural resources or your industries or your ports or whatever it may be. Now, here's another reason why they are so concerned about Vladimir Putin. I'm going to read you an article that I found the other day. Anyways, I had here on, so I'll post it down below. It was from Bloomberg. It was from 2011. Putin was speaking to a group of like young, university students, where he talked about the U.S. being basically the parasite of the global economy. He went on to talk about how the world needs a new world reserve currency. Now, this is in 2011, before I even started talking about the global economic reset, which now so many other people are talking about as well. And there is no doubt the Russians, who have been buying gold hand over fist, like the Chinese central bank as well, are colluding as we speak right now to, I think, come up with an alternative to the dollar payment system that currently runs the world. The West, particularly the neocons, the Wall Street bankers, are, I think, in crisis mode right now. They're freaked out about this because now we've seen with this peace deal, we've seen the French and the Germans almost come out and side with Russia, while at the same time, I believe, we're a few months away, if not sooner, where they're going to take unilateral direction in stopping these sanctions against the Russian government, which will be even a bigger win for Putin if indeed that happens. And I'm sure that was discussed when the three of them met in Moscow, I believe it was last week. So it turns out that under the failed leadership, not just of Obama, but of George Bush and the past presidents, really U.S. foreign policy over the last 30 years, which has been an abysmal failure, America's losing its influence in the world. The West is losing its influence in the world. And these other countries are realizing, you know what, we don't got to go along with the plans of these psychos anymore. We could kind of carve our own path. Now, in that article that I mentioned from Bloomberg, Putin also said, look, if the dollar, in essence, and I'm paraphrasing, if the dollar goes down, it's going to hurt everybody, okay? Now, think about this. If I'm Putin, if I'm the guy that's running China or the guy running India, and I have my economic team around me, I have to know that the U.S. economy is completely unstable, unsustainable. It is racked with quadrillions of dollars in derivatives, 200% plus of GDP in debt. The situation isn't getting any better. Not to mention, lately, Obama is basically now, as I've talked about for over a year, if not longer, he's allowed all these illegal aliens into the country, and they're going to get voting rights as illegal aliens, and they're getting tax refunds as illegal aliens, when men and women who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan are literally dying at the VA. So that's the new America under Obama, and it didn't start with just Obama. I mean, he's a train wreck, but so was Bush, and so were pretty much the two-party system. So Putin and all these other world leaders, they get it. They're like, look, it's going to be painful when we try to come up with an alternative, but it will be even more painful if we just sit around and let this happen and let the same Wall Street banks who, imploded the economy in 2008 rebuild and remanage from the ashes of a failed dollar, or try to continue to boost the dollar. One of the things with respect to the U.S. dollar we've seen today, the Dow Jones was up over 18,000. As you know, I've been saying it's going to go over 20,000. And it's only going to go over 20,000 because of the money printing that's taking place globally. The Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, the ECB, all printing money hand over fist. Now, the Fed says they've stopped doing that. They're doing it behind the scenes, no doubt about it. But all these other central banks that are printing money are now buying U.S. Treasuries, because Treasuries sales have absolutely boomed. They're buying stocks. We know that trillions upon trillions, tens of trillions of dollars in the last several years have gone to global equities, primarily in the United States, buying up stocks. So the bottom line is that this is, when you talk about, I read a book not long ago about Charles Ponzi. When you talk about a Ponzi scheme, a fraud, a scam, that's what, unfortunately, and I'm not happy about saying this, but that's what happens when you have psychopathic bankers running your economy. That's what the U.S. economy has turned into. That's what the Western economy has turned into. And the rest of the world is looking at this. They're very, very concerned. And that's why you see people like Putin winning in Ukraine, defeating Obama and the sorority sisters that run the Pentagon. That's why you see countries like Germany and France siding with Putin, because they get it as well. Anyways, love to hear your feedback on this. I'm Fabian for Liberty. Thanks for watching. I'm out.